Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. Today, I'm up to song number 2902, and that one is Another Tricky Day by The Who. And this was not released as a single, but it was released on their album Face Dances, which came out in 1981. Um, and In case you guys don't know, the Who is actually one of the most successful rock bands from the UK. They got started in 1964. I believe their two of their original members, Pete Townsend, their lead guitarist, he's the guy on the left in this picture, and Roger Daltrey, he's the third from the left. They're still with him. Roger Daltrey's their lead singer. Pete Downs is their lead guitarist. Also, the lead writer. He's written, I think, most or maybe even all of the Who songs. And I really like the Who. I mean, they're a pretty decadent band. You know, I think at one time they were listed as the loudest rock band in the world. I don't know if that's still true. I'll bet there's been a few heavy metal bands that have been louder than them, but they were very, very loud and they were very, very decadent. And they even used to smash their guitars on stage, which I didn't like. But they were pretty violent. They were pretty antisocial. But I think they were great musicians. Whatever have to say about the Who, I don't think you can deny them that. I think they were in terms of their musical quality. I'd say they were probably one of the best rock bands I know. And yeah, they were part of the 60s. And I think the 60s was a little crazier in the UK than it was in the USA. Uh, and like I said, they got started in 1964. Their original lineup included the members I just mentioned, Pete Townsend on lead guitar, Roger Daltrey on lead vocals. Also included John Entwistle, he was the bassist, and Keith Moon, he was the drummer. Unfortunately, Keith Moon died pretty young. He died in 1978. He was later replaced by Doug Sansom. He died, I think, in 2019, and then Kenny Jones. So they've had a few replacement drummers, and now I think it's just Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey. But I really like the Who, and I'm just gonna go through. They were more popular in the UK than they were in the USA. They were still pretty popular in the USA, but they didn't have as big hits. They only had one top 10 in the USA. That was I Can See for Miles. That was their biggest hit in the USA. That went to number 9 in 1967. I'm going to go through the top 10 hits they had in England. They actually didn't have any number ones in England either, which kind of surprises me considering how popular they were. But their first hit was I Can't Explain. That came out in 1964. I really like this song a lot. This is on my list, by the way. Even though it only went to number 93 in the USA, just barely made the top 100 in the USA. Went to number 10 in the UK. Their next big hit, I'm sure you guys all know this one, My Generation. I love that song. I think that's a rock classic. And that one came in very high on my list. I'm not going to say how high, but you'll hear it in about 8 years from now if you keep following me. Anyway, yeah, My Generation, everybody knows that song. It's kind of become iconic with the generation gap. That song just rocks. And what were their other hits? Top tens in UK. Happy Jack. Um, I'm not too crazy about that song, but that did go to number 10, I believe, in UK. And then I Can See for Miles. I already mentioned that one. And then what else? Pinball Wizard. I'm sure you guys know that one. And one thing about The Who, they had a rock opera called Tommy that I love. I mean, I think this was probably the best album, Tommy. It was first a rock opera. I mean, it was based on a story that Pete Townsend came up with, which they turned into a rock opera. The story about a traumatized kid who becomes blind, deaf, and dumb, mute in his mind, not really physically, but psychologically because of all this trauma, and he eventually becomes a pinball wizard of the world. I don't know if I want to tell you the whole story. eventually he's able to see and hear and speak, and then he becomes like the next Messiah. But then his cult revolts against him, and they leave him by himself. But then I think he becomes enlightened on his own at the very end. I think it's a very powerful story, and they even made it into a movie. They also made it into a musical, for stage. And I love it. I mean, a lot of people hate it, but I love it. I don't think most people like the movie Tommy, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think I can relate to it kind of on a personal level in a lot of ways too. It's kind of biographical about Pete Townsend. From what I understand, Pete Townsend was traumatized himself, and I think Tommy was supposed to be him, basically. So I love Tommy, and I really do like The Who, and I didn't even go through all their hits. Won't Get Fooled Again in '71. That was also top 10 in England. So was Squeeze Box in '76. And they had another hot hit in '76 in England, Substitute. I don't think that was a hit in the USA, but it went to number 7 in England. And then their last top 10, I think both in England, was You Better You Bet in '81. And I like almost all of their songs. I mean, a lot of people really like The Who. Like I said, they were a very decadent band, but I really like their music. I like Pete Townsend, I think, better than Roger Daltrey. I watched an autobiographical documentary about The Who, maybe 20 years ago. And Roger Daltrey's pretty vulgar. I mean, he loves to fight. He even says so in the movie. He likes to go to bars and get in fights with people, which I really don't like. He's a pretty nasty person, but he is a great singer. I don't know much about Pete Townsend's personal life. I kind of get the idea he's not as decadent as Roger Daltrey. I think Roger Daltrey was the one who smashed his guitar on stage. Um, so anyway, that's my profile on Another Tricky Day by The Who. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.